Do you remember him? No. Do you remember him? No. No one will ever reference one of the September starts from Blake Snell. You should have traded him. So dumb.
Do you want to do that with a guy that struggles to throw the ball right now, and then you add another shoulder injury? Why would you put him out there this week? Why?
Well,
you view this team as a Super Bowl contender still, please?
I'm a big believer in being realistic with yourself. Self-awareness, I believe, is the most underrated skill in any walk of life. Knowing who you are and where you are in your life is going to dictate a lot of smart decisions or horrific decisions that you make. Case in point, E40 has a line. Don't buy an $80,000 car before you buy a house, right? It's something that I live by. It really is. One of the things my wife and I did for a long, long time, and everyone has their own prerogatives, but in terms of money management, we said, hey, we are not going to go on extravagant trips. We're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to buy big vehicles, luxurious outfits and things like that. We wanted to save up for a house. And it took a long, 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 long time. And I watched a lot of other people who were my friends and stuff go overseas, go here, go there. And they got great experiences. And I'm not mad at them for that. But my prerogative was I want to be able to own a home, right? And I knew how expensive and how difficult it was going to be because we didn't have family money to just co-sign or give us a chunk of dough to go buy something.
Sure.
And so we bought our home and we've kind of chipped away, right? We were self-aware, knowing where we wanted to be in life 5 years, 10 years down the road. It's applicable to the San Francisco Giants situation. I tweeted out on 7/22, and I said it on the airways the next day on 7/23. Which was July, leading into the trade deadline. This team is not a playoff team. They have certain assets. They need to be self-aware. They need to be realistic, okay? You have to look long-term. You were fourth place in the division. You were chasing 5 teams in the wild card. You are not going to go on a run. You went through the rotation one time with Robbie Ray returning, with Blake Snell, with Birdsong, with Harrison, and Logan Webb. And you thought you had the best rotation in baseball and that you were going to magically go on a run that we all knew was unrealistic. But you had an asset in Blake Snell, a left-handed starting pitcher who was dominant during this stretch. And instead of moving that guy at the deadline for anything, you just lost him to the Los Angeles Dodgers in free agency for nothing. Now, he could sign with the Dodgers, and we'll get into that in a second. But I said on that day, the week before the deadline, you need to get something for Blake Snell. In a normal situation, when you lose a free agent, you get a second or third round conditional pick, some sort of a qualifying offer pick. But in that situation, when you sign Matt Chapman and when you sign Blake Snell in the previous offseason, you lost your second and third round pick. You were not going to get a qualifying offer if he left you. So it behooved you to get something, anything, a low-level prospect, something for him. It's asset management. The handful of starts you were going to have in September from him were going to be not memorable, and they weren't going to net you anything for 2025 and beyond, which is when you really were trying to contend, right? Right now, you're not. 2024, you were not a contender. Just be realistic. They didn't trade Blake Snell. He started a couple of games, wouldn't even take the ball in the final week of the season, all right? And then he left in free agency to your rival, and you get nothing out of it. The worst asset management has happened over the last 4 or 5 years, and thank God Farhan's gone. But for the life of me, it made no sense to not trade Blake Snell at the deadline.
Signs a 5-year, $182 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And listen, I was watching him last year in that second half, and I was like, why doesn't a team like the Yankees, and I'm sure they feel stupid, but so many teams are kicking themselves for not trading for that guy because he could have been the difference. If the Yankees had Blake Snell, who knows? Maybe they do win the World Series. Maybe something does change. Now, that doesn't change their defense and how porous that was behind Garrett Cole in that final game of that series. But to your point, not getting anything back for him, and we were talking about that all summer ad nauseum. I know Bonte was in here. Don't sell Snell. That's when he started coining that when I was filling in for you. I thought it was silly then. I'm not ragging on Bonte. Like, there are a lot of fans that felt like, hey, if we keep him, maybe we could re-sign him. But just judging where this team was going, why would Blake Snell want to re-sign here? Like, why would he do that? I understand Robbie Ray opting back into his contract. He's rehabbing. He's a former Cy Young winner, but he needs that security for next season. And then next season is going to be his other Blake Snell kind of a year, right? So maybe Buster Posey learns from this mistake, and then next trade deadline, right? If Robbie Ray's doing the same thing, maybe they flip him for a couple prospects. But I just, for the life of me, there is no way. And Farhan talked about this during the summer. He was saying like, yeah, we weren't blown away by anything. Well, I'm still probably giving the Yankees something. Like, give me something from the Yankees. Give me something from, I don't know, whoever else was out there. The Orioles, someone was trying to trade for him. You couldn't get a couple of prospects for Blake Snell. If they're double A, if they're single A, I don't know.
Something is better.
It didn't make sense.
Something is better than nothing. And I was pounding the table. He's the most coveted, starter on the market, hands down. It was not even a question. And he's dominant when he's on. But again,
he was having the best stretch of any pitcher last year.
No doubt. And he's a lefty.
Outside of Chris Sale and Paul Skeens.
And this is exactly what Farhan said the day after the trade deadline. Farhan on the decision not to trade Blake Snell. I think trading him would have changed the course of the season where we still believe in what we can accomplish. It was really going to have to be something that would change the course of the future here. See, Farhan, this is why you're gone, buddy. Like, you had to see beyond the forest a little here. You got to look down the road, all right? You were not making the playoffs after one turn around the rotation thinking that that's what you were. It was so foolish. And here's the other part. The Giants could have easily signed him. I even put it out there. I said on these airwaves, give him $200 million over 5 years. Oh, it's too risk averse. It's like, yeah, I know it's baked in with risk, but he's going to go to somebody that's going to hurt you if you don't sign him. You lost him for nothing, and he went to your rival. Well, congratulations. Let's all remember and cling to those 3 starts in September. Thank God you kept Snell. Do you remember him? I'm a diehard Giants fan. Do you remember him? No. Do you remember him? No. How about you, Sam Lubman? Do you remember any of those starts in September from Blake Snell?
Blake Snell started in September?
Exactly.
He had a complete game. Didn't he have like a no-hitter too?
Oh, yeah. We'll never... Look,
let's raise the banner for it.
The other station does this day in Giants history. No one will ever reference one of the September starts from Blake Snell. You should have traded him. So dumb.
It's like that 1 year with John Lester in the A's.
I think it's one of the biggest conversations. And it's not just for Major League Baseball, though it hits Major League Baseball harder because it's also about the NBA. There are about 16 teams in both sports who have what we call regional sports network. Like for us, we have the NBC, right? That's a regional sports network. They call it an RSN, right? We have NBC Bay Area Sports, or whatever it's called. What is it?
We got NBC Sports Bay Area.
NBC Sports Bay Area.
And NBC Sports California.
Right. Well, around the country, there's this thing called Bally's, all right, or Diamond Sports, which is what its company name is. And it went bankrupt. And so imagine 16 teams in both sports, baseball and the NBA, that were relying on revenue from that television TV deal. And they were building that in to how they would structure their salaries, right? In the NFL, everything is national. The only thing that you get local are the preseason games. So everybody takes the full pie of money and they divide it amongst every team. The Jaguars on the TV money get the same amount of money as the Niners. The Cowboys are giving the same amount of money as the Raiders, as the Tennessee Titans, etc. Well, in baseball, there's a regional sports network, and they divide some pie up on national money, but their amount of national money is nowhere near what the NBA's is and nowhere near what the NFL's is. So they rely on these regional sports networks. About 10 years ago, the Dodgers created their own channel, okay? It's called Spectrum Sportsnet LA, and it netted them over a 25-year period $8 billion. $8 billion.
So the Dodgers created that one? I know the Lakers play on there too. So like they encompass all the LA squads. Okay.
And they signed a deal with Time Warner. All right. And so
they took the, not to cut you off, the Yankees path because they have the Yes Network obviously too.
And the Mets have Nesson and Boston Red Sox have what is it called? Not Fenway.
Masson, right?
Masson, yes. Yeah. So there's a handful of teams that don't want to split that money up. They don't want to go national. They want to stay right where they are because they have a tremendous amount of money. And everyone's like, well, and I agree with this, like, it's a little unfair that the Dodgers and the Yankees and the big brands have their TV thing so locked in stone and so like they know exactly how much money they're getting from TV for the next 15 years, right? The Oakland A's, part of why the Oakland A's are in Sacramento is because they could still do a deal with NBC California. And they could still get some of that TV money. If they were to go to Vegas, they would have to rework the entire deal and it wouldn't be anywhere near it. Because again, these regional sports networks are antiquated. So everybody's screaming about the deferred money. I don't think the problem is the deferred money. In the NFL, they defer money all the time. Think about the Brandon Ayuk contract. He's getting certain guarantees spread out over many years. Now, for most of these guys, it's the life of the contract. But in many cases, you'll see a guy still get paid and he's not on the roster anymore, right? You see this all the time. Russell Wilson's still getting paid by the Denver Broncos. He's not on the roster, okay? He plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the deferred money, I know everyone's losing their mind. It's not that big of a deal to me. What is a big deal to me is that it's just not equitable. And what ends up happening is you have the haves and the have-nots. So, for example, Juan Soto, there's really only about 7 or 8 teams that can even begin to entertain a contract when it comes to Juan Soto.
And I think that's been cut down to like 5 teams because they had the initial meeting, right? And now he's even cutting down more teams after that. So,
right? In the NFL, like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers gets to choose where he wants to go, but conceivably, all 32 teams could afford Aaron Rodgers, right? You don't have that in baseball. So we are broken. And what's going to end up happening, and it's going to take some time. It's going to probably take about 4 or 5 years. You're going to see they're going to break up and splinter all these regional sports networks, and they're going to have to package this thing national. And it's the only way that the Tampas and the A's and the Twins and all these smaller market teams are going to be able to compete financially. And they need to have a salary cap floor. You need to have a floor so that everyone can compete. And you need to have some sort of a ceiling. Like they have to figure it out. I don't know what that number is, but they have to figure it out. Because right now, there's no middle class in Major League Baseball. And you have a team like the Oakland A's, and they're saying our payroll is going to go over above 100. I'll believe it when I see it.
Respectfully, Joe Shasky, they're the Athletics now. The Oakland wants
I'm sorry, what did I say?
You just said Oakland Athletics. They're not.
My bad.
It's just
I apologize. I don't mean to trigger you. No. That's really,
you're not triggering me. I was actually just saying that.
No, I know, but I feel that.
Tongue in cheek.
That sucks. I'm sorry.
It's like Justin Timberlake in, what was it, The Social Network, when he's like, drop the in the Facebook.
I thought it would be like T.O. It's tongue in cheek.
Yeah, there you go. Me and T.O. actually have a lot more in common than you'd think. Deli Boy. What's up, bro? How you doing? Deli Boy wants to join on this Giants talk.
Carter.
Turn it on. It might not be turned on. That might be the problem there on the pot. So there you go. Deli Boy there. You got it.
What's up, Deli Boy?
You guys can hear me? What's up, guys? I was just getting that message last night and seeing Snell go to the Dodgers just put a knot in my stomach. You know, it frustrates me because you can't blame him to go to a winning franchise. You know, he wants to win. I get it. But this is Farhan screwing us one more time by not trading him at the deadline, and we're getting nothing for him. We could have gotten something for him. We weren't going anywhere in July. We weren't going anywhere in August. Why didn't we trade him? Oh, I don't know, because Farhan said after one Robbie Ray start, we have the best rotation in baseball. And then what happened? We went tanked. We just sucked. We should have just traded him like that. And Joe, I agree with you. I think it's time for MLB to start implementing some sort of salary floor. Now, if teams want to spend like crazy, I say let them. If they can afford it, you can't blame them for doing that. But you got to force some of these smaller market teams, especially like John Fisher and the A's, to say, hey, you have to spend a minimum amount of money because I don't care if the players are going to get their money. They're going to get their money. The players' union is going to want them to get as much money as they can. The thing is you got to give something back to the fans and saying, I'm going to put money back into the team so you can have a winning product on the field. And right now, what they're doing to Buster Posey is unfair. They're putting him in because they're trying to appease fans and having a face that we all know. But then at the same time, you're telling us we're cutting back salary. We're out on Soto. You let Snell go for nothing and then go to our rivals, which for 5 years, 172.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford that. We couldn't spend that kind of money. I don't understand that. Now, the only way that I think that the Giants can redeem themselves is if they get a little plethora of players. I'm talking go out and go get Bo Bichette, Willie Adames, go get Vlad Jr., go do something. If you don't do anything, I'm saying it's time to sell. You got to get new ownership, new face in there, because if we're going to be doing like this, we're going to be looking up at the Dodgers for the next 10 years, in which it looks like we already are. And that's frustrating because this is, look at, especially with the A's now eventually going to go to Sacramento and then eventually going to Las Vegas. You have a whole region of Northern California just waiting for a team for there. And you have a vacuum that you can get these fans and get a winning team out there, but they're not doing it.
I know.
I don't understand. Wouldn't this be the time to strike and be like, no, we're going to go for it. We're going to get that little plethora of fans that are disenfranchised. They don't know what to do. We're going to get a winning product out there. I just don't understand the direction of where the Giants are going. And I feel bad for Buster Posey because I kind of feel like he has to come out and say, we're not doing these things, and it's going to make us feel better. Oh, because it's Buster? It still pisses me off.
I know.
I'm still frustrated right now.
How much pressure's on Bryce Eldridge?
Oh, man.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Thanks, Deli Boy. Appreciate the time, man. You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco and Odyssey Sports Station, always live on the free Odyssey app. Anthony Slater, 8:30, talking Dubs. Stu Gotts, our guy from Dan Le Batard Show, 9:20, talking about his book that he's promoting, but also just, you can talk about anything. I know Stu Gotts is a big, I don't know if it's tongue-in-cheek or not, but Ohtani hater, so maybe he's be welcomed here on the program. You're with him.
Well, look, there's something to be said. Like the top 7 payrolls in baseball all made the playoffs, right? Yeah. So there's something to be said about money. But that being said, the Padres had the Dodgers beat. Like, and they reduced payroll, by the way, the Padres this last year. They had them. If they just closed out in Game 6, they're the team that advances.
I mean, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts,
no, I know,
Merry
but
Christmas.
But Joe, can you acknowledge, like, the Padres had an opportunity to take them out?
They did. Yeah, they did.
And look,
but they didn't.
Are the Padres a financial juggernaut? Yes, to a team like the A's, but to the Giants, no. The Giants had a higher payroll this last year than the Padres. So, like, yes, you need to have money. Like, I'm not saying that money doesn't matter. Money absolutely matters. When like, for example, with them, they lost a ton of pitchers. This is the Dodgers. You still have the money to take on more payroll at the deadline, right? A lot of these small market teams don't have that luxury when injuries happen. So that is a built-in advantage. But the Padres had them. And Dylan Cease and them couldn't get it done.
You know what's frustrating, too? It's the biggest move for the Dodgers wasn't even someone that was that expensive. It was someone that the Giants actually, they were linked to and someone they could have had. It's kind of like Teoscar Hernandez.
It's a great call.
Like, come on. Like, you can't get a guy like that in your building. You let the Dodgers go for the cheap, and he's probably going to get re-signed by them, or, hell, maybe the Giants are interested in him now. I don't know. But those are the moves that would piss me off more so than anything because, yeah, you weren't going to get Shohei. You're not going to get Juan Soto. It's those fringe guys that can make a huge difference. And he was an all-star last year. He wasn't even a fringe guy.
Yeah.
So those are the moves that I'd be looking at. But let's pivot now.
Yeah.
Joe Shasky to a team with legit expectations, not the Giants win, and they kept losing these must-win games. So, like, I don't know where fans are at right now with their psyche. I know you're down bad, but I just keep thinking to myself, if there's somehow, some way, if they win this week, what it can do to a fan base. Now, we'll see what's going on. And Dan Graziano of ESPN, he's been monitoring this Purdy situation with his throwing shoulder. He was limited on Monday, but he says it's described by him as a day-to-day or week-to-week injury. So it sounds like they don't even know what's happening. And Baldy was joining you guys yesterday. Brian Baldinger, 95.7 The Game, NFL insider, former NFL offensive lineman, joins you guys every single Tuesday throughout the season. And he was saying he doesn't really know what it was. And he was talking to people before the game. So we don't even know what this injury is. The MRI said it was clean. The results are encouraging, but he still might be week to week. So it sounds like this is something that's just going to be lingering on. And I guess I say all that to say this, Joe Shasky, the weather, we're looking at potential single digits in Buffalo. Like, would you even want to bring him back this week? Like, that sounds like it's a recipe for disaster if you're just trying to get this guy healed up in time to even have a chance this season. Even if you lose this week, it's not the end of the world. But
if it was an ankle or something like that, I would be more inclined to rush him back. It's his moneymaker. It's his shoulder. I'm very concerned about Brock Purdy. And here's the other thing. Like, we watched Jimmy Garoppolo play through a shoulder injury. He played horrible. Horrible. And I'm not saying that Brock is better or worse, whatever. Like, he's clearly a better player than Jimmy Garoppolo. But what I'm saying,
afraid that it's going to have to be Jimmy Garoppolo that gets it done.
Okay, those playoff games and that finish down the stretch, we can't unsee. Would you agree?
Oh, he was never only the Raiders viewed him as a starter after that. And look what happened. He was horrible last year.
Horrible. And so, like, I do worry about his physical long-term viability, and then simultaneously, like, his psyche. Confidence is the most important thing in sports. You know, Russell Wilson, did he lose confidence
Yeah.
Okay. I think he's pretty much gained it in Pittsburgh. Would you agree?
Yes.
Right? And he looks like a different player.
He does. I do think his physical skill sets are like more limited than it was.
They're diminished.
Yes, than what he was at Seattle. But to your point, yeah, it matters. The mental outlook is sometimes more important than the physical, especially with a guy like Brock Purdy, because let's be honest, he's already limited physically. So adding this shoulder injury on top of that, playing in single digits, that concerns me, not only for the product on the field, but for what you're saying, his future in getting paid.
If let's say I took the name Brock Purdy off the list, okay, and I said to you, like, remove yourself in your fandom, would the Bills at 5-6, would they play Josh Allen with a hurt shoulder? Would they rush him back? I guess. No, I don't think they would either.
No. I don't think they would do it like a Jordan Love, a Lamar Jackson, a Patrick Mahomes. But that also goes back to their
even
confidence.
with their season kind of circling the drains.
Correct. I don't think
so either. I'm kind of with you, but maybe I'm wrong.
Shoulder's the one. Like
that's what I'm saying.
It's the same in baseball. If a pitcher like I'm not messing with anything with a strain, a tightness. Hell, I mean,
now he did play through an elbow injury. Josh Allen.
He did, but did Josh Allen have elbow surgery like Brock Purdy did just a year ago?
Not even close.
Like that's what's also concerning about this. And Dr. Narav Pandya, our 95% of the game injury insider, shout out UCSF Health. He's even a little bit concerned about that. Like you're coming off an elbow injury and on top of that, the shoulder, there's a concern level there. And Baldy talked about it yesterday with you guys on if it's going to hold up in the cold.
I don't really know. It kind of came late last week. Like we didn't really know like how bad. We thought maybe it was just a rest day on Wednesday, whatever, after the loss to Tampa. Like I just thought, or loss to Seattle. I didn't think there was any reason to think that he was injured in that game. I know diving for, the touchdown, all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's where he got hurt, the speculation. But I didn't see anything in that game that said he's going to be questionable going into this weekend's game against Green Bay. But look, the weather was fine in Green Bay. It was mid-40s. The wind wasn't bad. The grass was perfect. I doubt you're going to get those conditions in Buffalo on Sunday night.
No, they're projecting 30-mile-an-hour winds, snow, half a foot of snow, I should say. And, single digits with wind chill. Do you want to do that with a guy that's already struggles to throw the ball right now, and then you add another shoulder injury?
On turf.
Why play him this week is what I'm asking.
Well, I think you have to be, you have to have the big picture view. It's the same thing I was talking about
if this is the
when
future,
it comes to the Giants.
If this is the future of the franchise, that their words, that their guy, that's the word they use. This is our guy, John Lynch, Jed York. He's going to reset the quarterback market. Why would you put him out there this week? Why?
Well,
you view this team as a Super Bowl contender still, please?
If this were a playoff game, I view this completely different. And it's not. Exactly. Look how quickly you scoff at that. And I know there's people like, well, you're mathematically still available and you could still do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I understand that, but sometimes you have to save these guys from themselves. Like that's why I'm a very, very specific belief that Nick Bosa needs to shut it down too. Because I think Nick's going to have a long rehab process on this oblique injury.
This game, it's going to aesthetically, it's going to look awesome because we love snow games, but it could be a disaster for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, the Bills also have to play in it, and I get it. They always say there's some sort of home field advantage, but honestly, like when both teams are playing in the snow and it's that cold, they're both going to be feeling the effects. But this is having a guy, and I get it. I'm not here to crush Brock. I'm not here to say any of this stuff. These are just the facts. This is why it matters in the AFC North, having a big, strong quarterback. Brock Purdy's skill set is not his strengths are not in his physical skill set.
So you've heard my argument for years because I've said forever, like Kyler doesn't work in New England.
No, he doesn't work in the AFC North either. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Like
he'd be a Miami quarterback if anything.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Like Stafford, I believe works anywhere.
Yeah.
That's why he's had some great NFC North outdoor games over the years. Tua hasn't won a game below 25 degrees in his career.
And we're going to watch him play in Lambeau on Sunday night tomorrow. Or sorry, I keep saying Sunday night because it's Sunday Night Football on Thursday night. Yeah. But tomorrow on Thursday night.
And I think one of the underrated skills of Tom Brady, I just think we underrated his arm strength in general.
Oh, he was a dynamic. Like he got
just, you know what I mean? The way to throw it in the wind. Like we live in the Bay Area, so we have the Marine layer. It's not New England. I'm not pretending that it is, but you all know I've played catch with someone who can spin it through the wind, spin it through the elements. Some guys can, some guys can't.
At 44 years old in the NFC Championship game in Lambeau Field, he was slinging it in bad conditions. And he looked stronger than ever. Shout out the TB12 method. Maybe you should get that for Michelle for Christmas time. The TB12 book.
Well, then you know what she would say to me? What are you implying something?
No, you just want. I want you to be like Tom
now
Brady.
You see where I'm going.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're never going to win with that.
know.
That's what I'm saying. You just got to get. Hey, here's a diamond or something like
Here's
that.
Here's a $250 gift card to Lululemon.
If that's what it
She
takes.
hates gift cards.
What, she thinks they're disingenuous?
Yeah.
But you're
Go the extra
allowing.
mile and pick out some pants.
As I got LJ a $25 gift card to Target. But hey,
no, that's fine.
That's clutch though,
That's
because you
fine.
know what?
She's talking about me buying her a gift, not you.
No, it's easy to get the 1-year-old stuff because like I'm not getting them clothes or anything. Get something that they're actually going to use, and you're going to go get diapers, you're going to go get wipes with it or something like that. So there you go.
He actually, he got a lot of really cool gifts.
So there you go.
His favorite though was the actual wrapping paper from the gifts.
Oh, they love that. The kids love that. 888-957-9570. And he's going to have a great time opening up those gifts, ripping them open on Christmas Day. Again,
Bro, I was more fun to open the gifts. I was having a blast.
Right? It's for the parents. The first birthday is always for the parents. What's coming up in the game is brought to you by San Francisco International Airport. I hear what see, I feel like Bonte right now. I hear what you're saying over there, but they can't hear it on the air. 888-957-9570. Should Brock Purdy play this Sunday in Buffalo? Is it a must-win game for the San Francisco 49ers, or do you need to protect your asset going forward?
Also, really quick breaking news. Daniel Jones is going to not the 49ers. He will be a Viking.
Oh,
That's why. But Carter and I were just
hilarious,
debating whether or not to hit the breaking news sound. I figured, you know what?
Darnold and Jones?
To the Vikings. Yeah, if he was come to the Niners, that would have been our show. But
Redemption song, Bob Marley, the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, Kevin O'Connell, head coach, is asked about it, I think either yesterday or the day before, and he said like he was really enjoyed his draft work during the process of the draft a couple years ago. I think that was his rookie year as an NFL head coach. So, hey, he was in on Daniel Jones back then when he was coming out of Duke. I guess he's in on him now. And you know what? It's funny because Daniel Jones' only playoff victory was against the Minnesota Vikings.
That is
full circle.
There you go. It's full circle for Danny
I was like that
Dimes.
report yesterday. Daniel Jones has zeroed in on a team. Like he's the one picking the team that he's going to, and he's not just, it's whatever team just wants to take him.
So Daniel Jones would have been obviously the backup here, but Brandon Allen, I don't think played actually that bad as we get back into this game. So Brandon Allen, if Brock Purdy can't go, he's going to be the starter next week in Buffalo. Here's what Brian Baldinger said yesterday to you, Joe Shasky, in regards to BA's performance.
Execution is the name of the game, and they didn't do that. But once you got through that, you got that drive before the half to get in the end zone. That was a good drive that he put together. And, you know, if you catch the ball and protect a little bit better, you know, he threw for 200 yards. He threw for a decent percentage. Like, I thought he saw the field well. The ball came out well. Like, I was actually surprised at how comfortable he looked, considered how little he has played.
And I'm not overly concerned about the throwing in this upcoming game, honestly, as we're talking about it. Now, you're going to have to throw the ball because you're not going to have a Mac Jones, Josh McDaniels, New England Patriots type game in Buffalo like you did a few years ago where they just ran it a million times and threw it only 3 times. I don't think it's going to be that bad. But that being said, having a stronger armed quarterback this week will pay off. You're going to see it on the other side with Josh Allen, who has probably the strongest arm outside of Anthony Richardson in the NFL. If there's 30-mile-an-hour winds, you're damn right it's going to matter. So I don't want to have my limited arm strength quarterback, who's even more so limited in Brock Purdy playing this Sunday, if he is hurt, going into that situation and setting him up to fail. Maybe playing Brandon Allen is the smartest choice for Kyle Shanahan this week, regardless of if Brock Purdy gets cleared or not. Am I thinking too much into that?
No. I mean, I just think that right now, like, they're in such a tough spot. He's got to practice. Can we agree? Like, we got to start with practice. Can he get through a practice?
And he didn't practice yesterday. He did light throwing, and he didn't feel pain on Monday. Brock Purdy, that is.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. So, like, you know, we'll see. Yeah, I think if he practices either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, you know, that will tell us something.
This is Dan Graziano on ESPN Shasky. He said their plan is to assess, the 49ers that is, assess how Brock Purdy feels today and plan from there. It is truly unknown whether Purdy will be available Sunday night in Buffalo.
I'm going to read that into as pessimistic. Is there any other way to read it?
I mean, it's the word unknown, like you can't feel good about that. Shout out Elsa, Into the Unknown, Frozen 2.
It's a good call. Yeah, I don't know what. God, they're in such a tough spot. They got to get back to running the ball. I know they've been going up against stacked boxes like every week. It feels like this year we are reliving the Jimmy Garoppolo 2021 experience of stacked boxes. I'm talking about defenses piling everyone in and saying, we dare you to beat man coverage. And I think the absence of Brandon Ayuk is really being felt.
Well, in the absence of a Christian McCaffrey that we saw last year. Like, we're seeing Christian McCaffrey, but it's not the Christian McCaffrey we saw last year.
Not even close.
It's the, again, going back to Christmas, it's the ghost of McCaffrey past. Not even that. This is the ghost of McCaffrey future we're seeing right now in real time. Like, this isn't what we're expecting, but maybe it's kind of ridiculous that fans do expect this guy to look like just himself. This is bilateral Achilles tendonitis. Like, some doctors said this was a, quote, ticking time bomb of an injury that they're just waiting to happen. And you could see that when he's rushing. He doesn't look comfortable when he's out there. You know who looks comfortable when he's out there when they give him the ball? Jordan Mason. He looks comfortable. Brian Baldinger talked about that yesterday with you guys and what he's seeing from Christian McCaffrey and his struggles right now.
I talked to him before the game, and I put down in one of my, because he had the week before, he had 8 of his runs went for 2 yards or less. So on one of the runs, I said, he's right in the hole, and there's a big gap to the right the week before. I said, that's, to me, his legs could feel great. The Achilles tendonitis can be healed, but his eyes didn't look right to me. And he said to me, he goes, he kind of, like, I wasn't really looking to, pick his brain about that, but he brought it up to me. Like he watched it, which was surprised me. But not only did he watch the video, but he said, "You're right. I missed that hole." And I go, are your eyes late right now? Christian goes, "No, I got fooled." But I'm thinking that guy was full speed the way we've seen Jordan Mason 2 weeks in a row hit full speed dives right up the middle, where he's seen it in real time at full speed. And I don't know that Christian's eyes are right.
That's concerning to me. And that signals to me, and Baldy didn't say this, but that signals is more mental than physical with anything right now. His confidence level is just shot. And after week after week after week, he keeps getting stuffed. Like, sooner or later, that's going to bleed into his physical play. And right now, the 49ers need this guy to look, not as the offensive player of the year, just look like a top 10 back in the league right now. He was the best running back in football. He just be a top 10 guy right now, and they can't even get that production. Whereas Jordan Mason, he was a top 5 running back when he was getting those touches.
It's crazy. The Jordan Mason thing's wild. I was opining for him to get more touches last year. I didn't think he could do what he did this year. Like, he's way better this year than I thought of whatever I thought he could do last year. It was more like, I just think he's a bruiser and he's a different punishing style that would complement CMC and maybe, provide longevity for him. But it is weird. Like, in the handful of runs, Jordan Mason's running so hard, so fast. It looks like he's shot out of a cannon. And CMC just looks a little hesitant is the word that I would use. And it's not that he's not trying hard. No, it's just I don't see that same explosion. When I watch Saquon, it looks like he's been shot out of a cannon, doesn't it?
You watch Josh Jacobs last week, and we were talking about this.
Josh Jacobs'
skill isn't predicated on speed, but it's those cuts that he can make, that lateral quickness that he has.
And the decisiveness.
And I know he's a little undersized, but he's strong.
Yeah.
And he could drag some people. You are not tackling him one-on-one, kind of like how he used to talk about Debo, like good luck tackling him one-on-one. That's Josh Jacobs in the running game, but he's been able to see those holes, get quick, and the eyes not being there, not being ready enough is concerning. And here's the second part of Baldy talking about that, whether it's more mental or physical with Christian.
I don't know. Like, I think he might, like, just by what he said to me, and I don't want to make one little conversation into a big deal. I don't want to do that. But I'm wondering if he's questioning himself. If there's, like, you could say confidence, but, if you're, like you're seeing, like, he was the best running back in football last year. He averaged 5.4 yards a carry. Like, he was stellar. Now, you can say, okay, Kittle's out last week, Trent's out this week, all that stuff. But you can't just put it on a player. Like I understand they gotta do their job up front. But I see backs all the time, including Josh Jacobs on Sunday, find yards that don't look like they're there. And you just don't see the explosion through the hole. Like, there's a hesitancy right now. And if you hesitate at that position, you're just you're a pedestrian back.
Again, confidence, pedestrian, eyes aren't seeing it. There's a lot there, which leads me to think, on top of physical, just not feeling great, it is in his head right now. Let's go to Verducci out in the EDH, Joe Shasky, as we carry on this conversation about Christian McCaffrey and your concern level right now with the 49ers injuries. What's going on for Ducci? You're on with Spadoni and Shasky on the Morning Roast.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Good morning. And first off, I want to give my thanks to the 95.7 The Game family. Grateful for you all. Between you, Shasky, Bonte, Corey in the back there, Sam, Matt, and the rest of the hosts, man. It's great to be able to have a platform where us fans can be able to speak about the successes, the failures, our frustrations, about sports and what we love. So I hope that you all have a happy Thanksgiving. And then this weekend, it really is about getting back to running the ball. You guys have talked about it. CFC looks hesitant. He looks a little off. I don't know if it's because he's not truly 100%, but you got to go back to the guys that got you here. And that's Mason, Garendo, and mixing them in. I think maybe even doing a little bootleg action, I think it helped because obviously I think they're going to think that we're going to be running the ball a lot given the conditions there with the snow. So I think just getting back to that and controlling the clock, I think that really killed us in the Green Bay game because there's a lot of quick drives where we could have ran the ball, controlled the game, kept our defense off the field since we know that that's our weak link of our team right now. And so really looking forward to it. I'm hoping that Purdy can be out there. I'm hoping they can protect him. But, yeah, 49er fans, let's just keep the faith. We're one game back. I know it's been difficult. I know I've had my issues with Shanahan. But I'm really hoping that Shanahan can learn from last week, take it and move forward so we can get back to the winning ways. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
You too, Verducci. Great call. I'm looking at this, Spadoni. I almost called you Bonte there.
It's all right. I'll allow it.
McCaffrey, 11 for 31. I'm talking about rushing. 11 for 31 in the last game against Green Bay. 19 for 79 against Seattle. It felt like he was getting it going a little. And the team was too. And then the first game against Tampa, 13 for 39. You're averaging about 3.5 yards a carry. Now, it's 3 games. It's not a huge sample. Before the shoulder injury, just from week 1 until the Seattle game where he did get hurt, 147 yards, 100 yards, 77, 123, 89, 73. That's the rushing yards for Jordan Mason. On the year, even though he's been iced out the last 4 or 5 weeks, 5.1 yards a carry. He's also making more yards after contact. I think you got to find a way to get him more involved. You just have to. I'm not saying it's the end-all, be-all. I just think you're going to have to stay dedicated to the run. And right now, your best use is both guys, not just one or the other.
And what's tough right now is, with just the 49ers run game in general, Joe Shasky, not having a guy like Trent Williams out there is brutal. And I know Trent hasn't had the best year. He had the holdout. A lot of fans are pissed off at him. But he's still a top 5 left tackle in the NFL. Even at his diminished state this year, he's still better than almost everyone else in the league. He's just that good. He's a Hall of Famer. He's just not at his Hall of Fame level. But missing a guy like that, it's almost like it's a trickle-down effect. So, yeah, you're missing the quarterback. That means you're on your backup. That means the opposing defense is going to stack the box. They're going to force Brandon Allen to throw, Josh Dobbs, whoever it is. That's just what you do, right? We're going to force this backup to beat us. That's just smart football. But when your left tackle's out, and you have to rely on that run game, it's just, it's really tough to win. And I hate trying to be the excuse guy here, but I do think it's a legitimate excuse right now. When you look at just where this team is at, health-wise, 10 guys that are starters, I feel like I could call them right now. Nick Bosa, hurt. Javon Hargrave, out for the season. Dre Greenlaw, not there. Talanoa Hufanga, not there. You've missed Charvarius Ward, obviously due to personal reasons. Brock Purdy, that's on 6. You missed Christian McCaffrey for most of the season. Did I even mention Trent Williams? I'm almost at 10 already.
I know.
And there's more.
And if Trent's a game time decision, I'm gonna sound like almost a little cruel when I say this. I just wonder where he's at. Because I truly believe there are times where I felt like he's been a front runner. I believe that. And when the chips have been against the Niners,
definitely sore loser mentality when they're getting beat.
Maybe sore loser is the better way of putting it. Okay. Seahawks play the Jets at 10 a.m. Cardinals play the Vikings at 10 a.m. And then the 1 o'clock game is Rams and Saints. We're going to know if the whole division wins or who wins and who doesn't. I just got this feeling that if Seahawks win, Arizona wins, the Rams win, these guys are going to start making their own business decisions.
Well,
and then you lose the game against Buffalo. Now you're a couple games out. And now really it's instead of 2, you're really 2.5 to 3 because of tiebreakers.
It's a very tricky situation right now, and it's hard not, if you're a 49ers fan, it's hard not to feel like it's a lost season. But at the same time, we all kind of knew this was a possibility all summer long, right? You lose a Super Bowl, it's not like it's a lock you're going to get back to the playoffs next year. Look at the history of the teams that lose a Super Bowl. It is almost, and we're talking about mentals with Christian McCaffrey, it's almost more mental than it is physical. But when the physicality and the body starts breaking down of your players on top of that, I mean, good luck, man. Well, I mean, and you could say, oh, well, the Chiefs, and you saw Keyshawn Nixon saying it last week, oh, well, Jordan Love, he was out for a while, and we got the wins with Malik Willis, the backup. Yeah, but it's different when it's Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey and Dre Greenlaw and Nick Bosa and Ayuk. I didn't even mention that. Thank you. And Ayuk. Sooner or later, I'm sorry. It's not meant to be in a season if that's all the injuries that are going to be taking place. You think the Chiefs are going to overcome that? The Chiefs lost their 2 starting tackles in the Super Bowl and got boat raced. But there's only so much you can overcome sometimes.
It's been a season from hell. I mean, that's the only other way to put it. It's been the season from hell. I think about the Warriors season from hell when Clay was out for the whole year with the ACL, and then Steph Curry got his hand broken, and Draymond just stopped caring, and he admitted it. And they were just running out Kai Bowman and Eric Paschall. That was a season from hell, right? It was just, but it wasn't like this, because this, you felt like you had with Clay out, you're like, yeah, we probably don't have a chance. We just lost KD, right? You didn't really feel like you were a legitimate contender. That felt like the season from hell. This is worse because heading into the year, you did feel like you had a Super Bowl contender team. You did. And everything has gone wrong. And I would even argue that the things that have gone right are now starting to rear their ugly head as being wrongs. Dominic Puni has been one of the best Niner offensive line draft picks in so long. Now he's got a hurt shoulder, and he had a really bad game against Green Bay. Doesn't negate the 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks of excellence that he had prior, but I want to see him finish the year out. I want to see him finish on a strong note. Jordan Mason was top 5 in rushing, and then he hurt his shoulder and fell out of favor. Can he get that back? Malik Mustafa's been good at times. Drops a couple interceptions, the last couple of weeks. People are starting to question him. Renardo Green makes a bunch of nice plays and then also gets cooked. So all the good stories have a lot of caveats, and all the negative stories are the headliners.
It's kind of crazy how things flip. You lose the Super Bowl and you're down bad mentally, but there's this hope, right? It's like, man, we got our quarterback. We still got a lot of young pieces. Yeah, we're going to have to retool and revamp, but you know what? I like where we're at. We got our cornerstone foundation with Nick Bosa. We still got some time maybe with Kittle, maybe Debo or Ayuk. Maybe we have to move on from one of them, but you know what? We have the cornerstone players for the future to feel good about. If I was just to put out a poll about the optimism of this team going forward, in 9 months, it feels like a complete 180, which is crazy.
That's the NFL.
But they were just an overtime period away from winning a Super Bowl. And 9 months later, it does feel like the sky's falling and the future is, I'm not going to say bleak, because you do have Kyle Shanahan. And I want to, this whole conversation about getting rid of him is kind of just gotten overboard for me, because who are you replacing him with first and foremost? And the guy's just done so much. Being second place multiple times does not mean you're a bad team. It means you're second place in one of the most toughest leagues in all of sports in the NFL. It is so hard to be consistent year in and year out. That's why we look at teams like Tampa, not Tampa, but teams like New England with Tom Brady and co. Teams like, even the Packers as of late, who have been consistent. You look at those franchises and those teams and being like, man, I would like to have that model of consistency. And the 49ers have been that. It's okay that they have a down year, but it's what they do this offseason is really going to signify to me what this team's going to be like going forward, because the Eagles are kind of I'm viewing them in that same view of the Eagles last year, who did make the playoffs coming off a Super Bowl loss. But you knew after that loss to the Niners, they weren't the same.
They weren't even close to the same.
Weren't even the same. But what did they do, Joe Shasky? They retooled, revamped. Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen Hurts and Sirianni looked like they've got a new foundation. They look like they're
the right coordinators.
They got the right coordinators.
And then they added Saquon.
And they took off a lot from Nick Sirianni, who's not Kyle Shanahan, but maybe Kyle Shanahan needs to take some off his plate.
Well, here's what I would push
Brian
back.
Baldinger mentioned it. They miss Mike McDaniel right now.
Okay, let me push back on the creativity thing from Shanahan. I've seen a lot of everything's stale. The offense still works. It does. Guys have to execute. Similar to Belichick, Kyle and his personnel decisions have stymied some of his own offensive brilliance.
Can I cut you off real quick? I'm not saying that it's not the offense that doesn't look good. I'm saying there's so much on Kyle Shanahan's plate right now. It's the simple things that are killing the Niners.
Well, that I agree with.
And that's a direct reflection of the head coach. You're either coaching it or allowing it to happen with penalties and sloppy mistakes that I saw last week. That's 100% on Kyle Shanahan.
I don't think he's infallible, and I don't think that he's not without criticism. His insistence on running the old Seattle 2014 defense is driving me nuts. No one's running that defense anymore. Everyone wants to run whatever the heck Mike McDaniel's running up in Seattle, which is what he ran in Baltimore.
You also don't have Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor. You don't have all those guys.
The league's cyclical. So, everyone's evolved away from that defense. So, his insistence on running that defense, that's going to have to change. His insistence on playing specific personnel, like Jake Brendel. Bro, we've been telling you for 2 years you need to upgrade the center spot. And it's sabotaging his play calling.
Well, he's told you what he thinks about the offensive line in the offseason and paying those guys. Unless it's a first-round pick, he's just going to keep drafting them in the third and fourth rounds.
Yeah, but go out and draft somebody in the third or fourth round then. Jake Brendel is like an undrafted free agent that's been around the league for a minute.
They probably will.
I want to see them also, figure out what the hell you're doing at wide receiver, because you have way too many bodies and not enough targets for any of those guys, and it's driving everyone nuts.
I mean, Ricky Pearsall,
it's not a great pick.
It's not
a great pick. But I do believe there are plays to be had out on that field, and I think that execution has been the biggest problem. Question: why is it that sports fans have such a small, narrow-minded view on athletes who they should be very thankful for? Deebo Samuel, for example, you went on a tirade at the end of it's not tirade, but you went on a little rant at the end of the segment, the final one, and you were going on about Deebo. Deebo's been a great Niner. Deebo's about to encroach into the top 10 in terms of yards for a receiver in 49er history. And 38 less games than Freddie Solomon. He's been a great player.
Yes.
Great player.
Great players also have some not great moments.
No doubt.
And that one against Tabor Pepper was not a great moment.
Yeah.
And it honestly kind of changed how I view him a little bit.
No, not me at all.
That's fine.
Deebo Samuel dragged this team through one of the most iconic playoff runs they had no business going on. Deebo gave his body and soul to this team over and over and over again. Are there times where I get frustrated with him? Of course. Of course, there's no doubt about it. But this rhetoric that Deebo needs to have the C ripped off of his jersey. Shut up, number one. And number two, can we have a little perspective? He's frustrated. He's been dangled in trade rumors for 8 months. Yeah, nothing's going well right now. Everybody is hurt, and he's doing his best, and he's a wide receiver like we learned in the wide receiver doc, and they're the last person who can control their own fate on a field. They need the offensive line to block. They need the quarterback to be able to throw the ball down to him. It needs to be a good throw. They need to have the appropriate protection. So many things need to fall in place for Deebo to have a good game. Now, can they do running back type stuff with him? Absolutely. But that's also incumbent on the play caller to scheme those things up and get him going. Is he a gadget player? At times, yes, he is. He's also one of the great 49er playmakers in the last 20 years. You cannot write the history of the 49ers during the Shanahan era without starting with Deebo Samuel somewhere in the first couple sentences. So all of this Deebo Samuel slander that I've been hearing over the last few weeks, everybody pump the freaking brakes. Okay? Yeah, it's been a forgettable couple of weeks. He has been an unbelievable player for time and time again. And every time we try to count him out, he's had unreal playoff moments. Dallas, on the road, stud. Okay? What about what he did in Green Bay? Telling the coach, give me the ball on 4th and 6. I'm going to will us to field goal range. What about what he did over and over and over again against Seattle in the playoff game, going absolutely nuclear? How about the NFC Championship game last year, Deebo Samuel doesn't have just one playoff moment. He's got a half a dozen. He has been an all-time 49er. Now, people could disagree and have other people higher than him. That's fine. You can't say that he hasn't been a great Niner. The last month hasn't been great. I hear you. I'm not going to let everyone kick this guy while it's down. We're piling on Deebo Samuel. He has been a freaking stud. I'm tired of hearing Deebo slander.
all of that's true. He's not had a great year. And we're just reacting to him not having a great year is all. He didn't have a great Super Bowl. He hasn't had a great regular season. And Brian Baldinger thinks he's turned into more of a gadget player.
I mean, he's becoming more and more a gadget player than a receiver. And, whether it's running him on a reverse or out of the backfield, that's where you kind of see his value. But if you're saying, okay, go beat Eric Stokes, go beat Keyshawn Nixon, in press man coverage, you don't see it. The quarterback can't wait that long. And then you're saying, okay, well, where's the man beaters? Green Bay wants to play a lot of man. For a while in that game they did. Yeah, it's interesting, like the 49ers want to attack the middle of the field, and that's what the Packers are trying to take away. That's why Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard and Evan Williams are all there. They want a great safety play, and that's what they got in that game. But guys aren't separated. And I said weeks ago that they look like a slow team, and that's how they look. That's how they play. You don't see speed from this group right now.
Look, I'm not going to argue with Baldy. It has not looked good. I will freely admit that. But to say that like all the great things that he's done are now discredited by a bad couple of weeks
Who's
or
saying
a down season, because I see the rhetoric from Niner fans ready to throw this guy out the door. And I'm like, wait a minute, guys.
Are you bringing him back next year? Do you feel comfortable bringing him back next year?
What's the price point?
Well, right now you're looking at
Brandon Ayuk healthy?
$28 million cap hit.
Is Brandon Ayuk healthy? I don't even know if Brandon Ayuk's going to be ready to start the season. So all I'm saying is I've done this because believe me, I was the same way. I ripped Debo, and then a couple of weeks later, he had the Philadelphia game alone last year is one of the all-time cash a check in some city's face games I've ever seen in any sport, no matter what the stakes are. That was he said goodbye to a team and ended their season after being pissed off because his backup quarterback blew his UCL off in the NFC Championship game. Like, come on. Like, I get it, man. Sports fans, we lose our minds. Like, we want to crush Clay. We want to crush this guy. We want to crush that guy. But, like, the overwhelming majority of Niner fans, when I go to games, are like, Debo's been a freaking great Niner. Yeah, I'm frustrated that the team sucks right now. It's not all on Debo Samuel, all right? Like, let's pump the brakes a little. Before we kick this guy out the door, all right, let's just remember what he did for this team, what he did for this region.
Of course, Brandon Crawford, he was a great Giant. He did amazing things. He's a Giants Hall of Famer. He was awful.
We didn't kick him on the way out the door.
Yeah, some people did. Some people wanted him gone. Brandon Belt, another one. People kicked him out.
Don't ever put Brandon Belt in the same sentence as Debo Samuel.
Well, Brandon Belt contributed to a championship.
Debo was one of the best players in the league. You could never say that about Brandon Belt.
All right, well, if we're going to talk about guys who we kicked out the door who deserve better, like how are we not bringing up Klay Thompson?
He said that.
He said he did.
Oh, he did? Okay, my bad.
But here's the thing, though. When you go to games, I don't think people are like booing Debo, and I didn't think people were booing Klay Thompson. The internet is not real. I keep telling people this. Like, the internet is not real. Just because some morons on their content creator station is ripping Debo Samuel doesn't mean when I go to Levi Stadium, because I'm at the games. Carter, you go to the games. I know people aren't sitting there like, Debo sucks. Get him out of here. He needs to be traded. The real fans like, come on, get the ball to Debo. Let's go, Debo. Come on, make a play. Like, when you go to Oracle or when you go to Chase Center, people are like, get Klay out of here. They're like, come on, Klay, hit this shot. Like, the majority of real fans, real people who breathe real air in the outdoor world, not in the basement while making YouTube videos, actually like these players. And I think that the rhetoric on the internet is out of control. Debo's a stud. He's an all-time Niner, whether you think he's the 7th best wide receiver in Niner history, the 11th, the 4th. It doesn't matter. We all agree. The history of Kyle Shanahan as the Niners coach and the history of the 49ers cannot be written without some inclusion of Debo Samuel. Let's remember this, and let's be thankful for the player.
There you go. You can be thankful for him, but also just acknowledge that no one's perfect. He hasn't been a perfect player this year. I think you can make the argument he's been the most disappointing 49er this year. They needed him to step up in that wide receiver room after Ricky Pearsall went through what he went through. Also, he's a rookie on top of that. What Brandon Ayuk shredding his knee and Juwan Jennings, who was supposed to be your 3rd best wide receiver, is making you look this bad. Yeah, it's been disappointing for Debo Samuel. Not saying that what he hasn't done in the past, Joe Shasky, hasn't been amazing. It has been. But this is the here and now with the 49ers. And the here and now has not been good, which sucks.
I acknowledge.
And he brings a lot of this stuff on himself sometimes with his podcast, with what he says after games, with what he said to Tabor Pepper, with all of that stuff. I'm just saying it hasn't been a good year for Deebo Samuel. It wasn't a great year or last couple of good years for Klay Thompson. This happens. It's part of it. Joe Montana was sour when he left the 49ers. There's a lot that gets baked into it. So it's okay to acknowledge he is great, but while also acknowledging this has not been a good year for him in a variety of ways. It's okay to acknowledge that.
No, I can acknowledge that. But wouldn't you agree we've piled on enough?
We'll see. The season's not over.
Taking the C off him, people suggesting that he shouldn't be a captain, the players vote on that. And when I see a player come out and say something against Deebo, I'll start to listen. As far as I'm concerned, Deebo's still leading the march with the boombox coming on out. Like, he is one of the ride or die guys that the Niners have ever had. Ever. I'm not here to listen to a bunch of people critique him who don't root for the team, actually go to games and sitting on their couch with their families. Like, no one is like, get Deebo out of here. Like, come on, man. Like, let's just have, I wish we could just have, now I'm saying you, I'm not saying you, I'm saying people in general. I wish on the radio and when we do these podcasts and stuff, we could have real fan conversations.
Sure.
You know, and I just feel like pull the knife out of the guy's back and let's also be thankful for what he's done for the Niners.
I do think there is something though, too. You're saying he's the boombox guy. He's supposed to be kind of an emotional leader for this team. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they need to find someone else to be the emotional leader on this team, because right now the biggest emotional leader on defense is missing. You like to think it's Fred Warner. You like to think it's the best guys, the DPOY, Nick Bosa. No. They're missing Dre Greenlaw. Like, that's just been massive.
No doubt.
And right now, and we'll shift to the defensive side right now, because I think overall, people want to crush Nick Sorensen. They want to crush all this. They want to crush that. Fact of the matter is, the straw that stirs the drink is the linebacking core on this team for me, and missing Dre Greenlaw has not only hurt and hindered his teammate Fred Warner, but just guys like Nick Bosa, guys in the secondary, guys, you know, it's a cyclical effect. It's a trickle-down effect when you're missing a guy like a Dre Greenlaw. And ever since the Super Bowl, when he's been missing, this defense just has not been the same. Once he went out in that game, at Allegiant Stadium, Travis Kelce took over.
No doubt.
It was over after that. Once Mahomes and Kelce started connecting, Joe, it was a wrap. Like, I saw it, like, oh boy, I've seen this against the Raiders. I've seen this against the Chargers. I've seen this against the Bills. Once they start hitting on that, there's no stopping them. And that's what happened last year in the Super Bowl. Now his practice window is open. I mean, it's an Achilles injury. I don't know what you're going to get from the guy. Like, to say that he's going to come back and be the same player is disingenuous, because we just saw that with Christian McCaffrey, and he's not the same guy.
Well, and I was thinking about him from his perspective. Like, you're coming off of an Achilles tear. People are questioning whether you could play or not, right? Is it like better for you to come out and play and look kind of okay on tape? Is it better for you to not play at all and someone just sign you sight unseen? Like, I don't know what's the best course of action for him? Forget the Niners. For him.
I mean, it's a tricky situation still, right? He's 27 years old, so he's not like super long in the tooth. But an Achilles injury, when his game is predicated on speed and power, it's not like he's some big burly thumper in the middle and he doesn't know how to have this huge quick. No. The 49ers defense, your linebackers need to be fast. And they've kind of been the blueprint, right? It's Fred Warner, it's Dre Greenlaw. They've been the best tandem outside of maybe Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, but I'm probably still taking Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw over them at their best. If he just loses a split second, because Ross Tucker talked about this a couple weeks ago, even if you lose just a hair off your game in the NFL, that makes all the difference.
The margins are
whether
so
you're
thin.
a running back, whether you're an offensive lineman, and especially if you're a linebacker. I mean, and not to the extent of a Navarro Bowman, but you saw it immediately. It was a full step off. It was over. You saw it immediately.
Did Ross Tucker say it like this? If you lose like half a step, Steiny,
that's pretty good. I'll give you a 3 for that.
You got to understand, as an East Coast upper elite, that when you lose half a step, it's like losing 3 steps.
That's a pretty good impression. Actually, that's not.
I like Ross, but that's how he
speaks. He's very eloquent. Yeah. He has pregnant pauses a lot that we like to say here in radio. A lot of dead air. He kind of pivots you. But yeah, he basically said it like that, and he did deal with a knee injury or leg injury, I think he said, and he said, "Hey, I lost a step." And that was all it took.
Julian Peterson was a sick linebacker for the Niners. Could cover, run, do everything. He tore his... Now, it was 20 years ago. The science has changed a lot, but like he tore his Achilles and was not even close to the same. Never was the same. So it's a devastating injury.
Achilles is, I still view as something that you're just never going to get back.
It's a career alterer.
ACL's different. ACL we've seen. We saw Adrian
It's
Peterson.
hit and miss, though.
We saw Adrian Peterson tear his ACL and win the MVP and had one of the greatest seasons.
And then Derrick Rose tore his ACL and never was the same.
Kevin Durant came right back from
Kevin Durant, his game, little different. He's still taller than everyone else.
His game is a little different.
Yeah, but
if he wasn't 7 feet tall, I just wonder. But that's a good point. That's a good counter.
But the explosiveness still, the Achilles there, it's a little bit different.
And I watched him in that Phoenix game against Denver, the closeout game where they were losing by like 60. This was a year and a half, 2 years ago. He looked terrible.
Now
is his career over? And he looks amazing now.
Well, you haven't taken him off the elite pedestal yet, though.
No. And they just smashed the Lakers last night. The Suns, by the way, look really good. Bradley Beal and co, too. They're all healthy. They came back. Well, they just destroyed the Lakers in that third quarter. I don't know what to make of them either. It's just, there's a lot.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's tough. JJ Redick. Hey, did they dodge a bullet, though? I know JJ's been having some up and down season, but Dan Hurley, that was the guy that they were linked to in the offseason.
Mr. UConn?
Dan Hurley going nuts on the sidelines right now for UConn. Tough L to Colorado.
Nothing.
Buffalo. Big 12.
Nothing cracks me up more than like, I'm the leader of a bunch of young men and impressionable men. I want you to be on your best behavior, but I'm going to lose my mind.
Is David in Denver going to lose his mind about this Debo Samuel talk? He wants to join in on the conversation.
All right, get in there.
What's going on, Dave?
Hey, what's up, fellas? Hey, I just listening for the past few days. I don't know. I don't really get all the hate and negativity being levied towards Debo specifically. Trade him, he's done. I'm just like, it seems weird, man. Like, I don't know if it's kind of a byproduct of like everybody's off this year. Everybody kind of sucks.
Thank you.
Like nobody's doing well. You know what I mean? Like, CMC, he don't have a burst anymore. Debo, it's everyone except for my man George Kittle and Juwan Jennings. But other than that, everyone's lackluster. I don't know. Maybe it's because Debo's a little bit more boisterous. He puts himself out there more. I get all that. But what about Brandon Ayuk? This dude acted like a baby all off season to get his money, and then he goes and gets hurt, which I understand you can't totally control, but just because he's out of sight, no one says anything about him now. He's a lost cause for the whole season. I don't really see Debo out there truly dogging it on the field, unless you guys see stuff that I don't. I haven't really seen that. Maybe,
no, I haven't either.
Yeah, there's some explosiveness that's not there. But to be honest with you guys, and I want to get your thoughts, I feel like maybe it's more offset by the predictability that everyone's talking about with the play calling.
I would agree
and I'm
there.
not trying to just focus on Kyle, but I think they know what's coming with Debo. It's not really changed up too much. So then the byproduct is everyone's like, oh, Debo's lost a step. I just don't really buy that, man. What do you guys think?
I agree with you.
Thanks, Dave.
Did he look like he lost a step on that kick return?
No.
Did he look like he lost a step on that screenplay?
No, but I will say this. The fact that he hasn't evolved at all as a route runner at this stage in his career is a little concerning. Like, you'd think he would have gotten better at that stuff, but it seems like he's pretty complacent that he was going to stay within this 49ers system all the time, and he could lean on Brandon Ayuk being that guy, or George Kittle being that guy, or Juwan Jennings. But the fact that he was supposed to be the number one wideout after Ayuk got hurt, and he hasn't really stepped up and filled that role is disappointing. I think that's what fans are at, though. They're just disappointed in his production overall as a wide receiver this year, and he's turned into a bona fide gadget player, as Baldy said.
Like, Anquan Bolden wasn't a great route runner. He had vice grip hands, though.
No,
like,
you would consider him a possession wide receiver.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's an apex catcher. Like,
yes.
He has the Juwan Jennings, like where, three guys on me. Oh, I'm going to make that catch.
DeAndre Hopkins, right?
Yeah, but DeAndre runs good routes for how slow he is.
He does.
For how slow he is. Like, Anquan Bolden was not a great route runner. He just had vice grips, and he was a great, catch guy. Debo's skill is yards after the catch. That's what he is. He's a glorified smoke screen, tunnel screen, slant god. That's what he is, dude. Like, that's his bread and butter. Not everyone is blessed with everything and every skill set. And so, I still think he's a very useful player. Is he overpaid? I'll listen to that. Why is everyone mad at him? It's a great question. I just think we're always looking for somebody to blame. And I think he's the guy that we're trying to blame right now. When in reality, there's 10 things to blame.
Well, it's a plethora of things right now. And what are you most disappointed in? Is it Debo Samuel? Maybe that's the word. Are you just disappointed in his season right now?
Yeah, I'm disappointed he's not better.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, is that for you? I mean, Christian McCaffrey, a lot of these, though, are, and that's why I think a lot of is Debo related, because we haven't seen that major injury with him, right? We have kind of excuses for the other guys, right? Bilateral Achilles tendonitis one, oblique for Bosa, what's Trent Williams, his leg, Brock Purdy, the shoulder. There's like, I could point to things there. What, Debo? Like, I get it. Everyone's kind of banged up right now, but I haven't seen that major injury from him. And I think that's where fans are a little disappointed. Real quick, Joe Shasky, as you know, we're giving away a Golden State Warriors Buddy Hield City Edition jersey today. I'm rocking the City Edition right now. It's a Steph one, but we're giving away a Buddy Hield one. So be listening within this hour for this sounder. You're going to hear this sounder, and I'm going to give you the number when it's time to give it away. But be listening for this sounder.
Moody leads Draymond away. Quick feed to Anderson. Big step to the corner. Buddy Hield release and splash! Ties the game at 26. The Warriors with 4 straight threes. Their last 4 buckets have all been threes, and they've tied the game at 26. It's a 9-0 run.
Right there, you got to be listening to that and be the 5th caller on the contest line to win. Again, I will give out that phone number when it is time. We got Anthony Slater joining us, Shasky, here in the next 8 minutes, and we'll pivot to the Warriors here. But just putting a bow on the San Francisco 49ers conversation right now, the word is just disappointing, right? And it's the worst thing, and you're a parent now, and you'll get this with LJ, and you got the speech, I'm sure, from your mom or dad. I'm not angry with you. You know, if it's a bad grade, if you did something wrong, if you broke a window, if you punched someone, if you got into it with your sibling, I'm not angry, just disappointed. This is the worst thing that could happen. And right now, I'm just disappointed in the 49ers top to bottom. 888-957-9570 is the number. We were talking about 49ers. We've been talking about the Golden State Warriors. Huge trip. Well, not a trip, I should say, but a huge stretch coming up for them. Thunder tonight. We'll have that covered starting at 6 o'clock right here on 95.7 The Game with the Warriors Live. And then tip off at 7 with the voice of the Warriors, Tim Roy. Take your calls after the game with Warriors wrap up. Joe Shasky. We're going to have 4 down territory here. Not yet. But I did want to get your thoughts on what Colin Cowherd was saying prior to this. We were talking about, the expectations of the 49ers just after this season. And I'm looking at Brock Purdy, and I'm not doing the like-for-like comparison here. But I looked at what the Dolphins gave Tua last year in the contract that they dished out to him. And I just thought to myself, God, who are they bidding against? And then I started thinking that more and more because you just can't help but look. And Stugatz obviously is based out of Miami, so we can get his thoughts on this as well when he joins us. But the concussions are obviously a concern. And my concern with Brock Purdy right now is we're dealing with the shoulder injury. He's not the biggest guy. He's going to have some wear and tear on his body more so than a guy like a Patrick Mahomes and a Josh Allen, who've also had their injuries, obviously. But who are the 49ers bidding against next year, heading into these contract talks? Like, is it the Raiders? I don't see the Raiders paying him. Is it the Panthers? Maybe. Is it the Cleveland Browns? Well, they have all that money with Deshaun Watson. Like, I'm trying to find out who are they, bidding against here when it comes to these Brock Purdy negotiations. And what is Brock Purdy's lawyer going to say, or lawyer, that's a little strong. What is his agent going to say, to the 49ers brass and John Lynch and Parag when these negotiations start? What is his argument, Brock Purdy's camp, when they start doing these contract talks next year?
I mean, I think his argument is pretty simple. It's like, hey, I've been playing like an upper echelon quarterback and getting paid like a guy who's on the practice squad. Like that starts there. And then the question now becomes like, yeah, we acknowledge that and we understand you're dramatically underpaid. Now where? Like, where do you slot it? It's just interesting to me. Like, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson, and I don't think enough teams use this opportunity. Kirk Cousins was franchise tagged, and it was a negative thing. And to me, it's like, no, all that money's guaranteed up front. Now, yeah, everyone wants the fully guaranteed $200 million contract, multi-year. But in these types of situations, why are we in such a rush to get it right? Like, don't you want to get it right, not just be in a rush, not just lock them up, just be done with it, right? It's like, no, I want to make sure that the price point is proper, and I want to also make sure that, I've insulated myself as an organization so I'm not stuck with a bunch of debt money. So what ended up happening with Lamar is that they ran their course, and then he was going to be a free agent. They franchise tagged him, and they placed an exclusive or non-exclusive tag on him, meaning anybody could have matched an offer, put an offer out there. The Ravens had the right to match, and if they didn't want to match, they get 2 first-round draft picks. Now, you can extend Purdy a year early, or if you can't come to an agreement, just plays on the contract he's on, and then he would become a restricted free agent. After that, place the franchise tag on him again.
I'm not saying they're going to do this. We're having the conversation here. All right. So before everyone freaks out, oh, you can't do that. It's malpractice.
Why?
No.
Why couldn't you?
I'm not. What do you think you could trade? Realistic. We were just talking about trading. What if you traded Brock Purdy? What do you think you could
I asked this question with Bosa, remember? And everyone thought I was crazy. And I was like, at the time, when he was right up until he signed it, I was like, just out of a thought exercise.
Well, we did it because it happened with Khalil Mack in Oakland.
What did we think that Nick Bosa could net you?
Similar to the Khalil Mack, which was 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, and then was swapped in the second round and a third-round pick, something like that. It was similar to that.
I'd be hard-pressed, and this is going to sound absurd. I'd be really interested to see. I think it's a first-rounder, maybe a third for Brock Purdy. Like, okay, let me ask you this. Is Tennessee offering you their top 10 pick to get Purdy and pay him?
I don't think so.
I don't either. Now, would they do a future? Probably, but why would you do a future pick? You want something that you can execute immediately. The Raiders. Are the Raiders surrendering a top 5, top 10 pick for Brock Purdy? No. Right? So, do the exercise. Now, I don't weigh a first-round pick in the 20s the same way I do a top 10 one. Right. So I need to be fair here. But what team drafting in the 20s is going to trade you that? Would the Steelers trade a late first-round pick for Brock Purdy?
That's an interesting one. The Steelers team, I don't know, depending on where the Saints finish this year. The Saints, they're in a division where you can get a quarterback.
I don't even know who their coach is.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Same with the Raiders. So a lot of these situations, you're going to have, how many head coaches are going to get fired or have been fired already?
Would Shane Steichen in Indianapolis trade a first-round pick, which would be probably teens and 20s, for Brock Purdy?
God, it sounds like a nightmare because you've already, you drafted Anthony Richardson knowing he's a project. Then you benched his ass, brought in Joe Flacco, who's 50 years old. He stunk it up. Then he pivoted back, and now you're punting altogether on Anthony Richardson. They haven't had a quarterback since Andrew Luck, and prior to that, it was Peyton Manning for 50 years. See where I'm getting at?
I do. And so I guess this goes back to supply and demand. Who are you? Honest to God, I like him. I want him. I want to keep him. But who are you negotiating with?
JC, San Jose, he wants to join in the conversation. What's going on, JC? You're on the Morning Roast.
Hey, guys, great show today. Just want to add on the 49ers. I know players are never going to go for this, but this year is snake bit, and this Brock Purdy conversation exactly to my point. Just shut down. Don't bring back Dre. Do not give McCaffrey rest if you need to. This one game behind a very, very bad 3-4 team division we got going is going to be the end of us. You got to think about next year at this point. I hope all those 3 teams win before our game on Sunday. Because this whole one game thing is a carrot that's going to come back and bite us in the ass. Debo, I know you guys were talking about earlier, Debo is making business decisions because he knows this is his last year with the team, and he's trying to get a 2-year, $35 million contract with the Saints or the Panthers next year, which is fine. He's got to get his, but that's what's happening, and this team just doesn't have it this year. No point going all in and risking further injury to the guys. Just rebuild for next year. Give the young guys a chance.
Thanks, JC. That's JC in San Jose, 888-957-9570, the number.
Who are you bidding against, though? Honest to gosh, are you just trying to do right by him just to say that you've done right by him, Purdy? Because if that's the case, then I understand that. I do, being underpaid, but it's not about what you made prior, and it's what are you going to do once we give you this money going forward, right? And so I'm just in no rush. I was in a rush at one time. Now I'm not. I'm not in a rush. And that sounds harsh on Purdy. It's more just football.
Again, I'm very curious to see how this shoulder reacts. The guy's already had elbow surgery. He's not the biggest guy. He doesn't have the strongest arm in the NFL. What's his arm strength going to be the rest of the season? Is he going to play this Sunday? How's he going to look in some of these games? I get it. You don't play in the AFC North. You don't play in these cold weather situations a lot, but it could happen. You could be in an NFC where you have to travel to Green Bay, or you could have to travel to we're not in Chicago if they end up being good. Someplace like that. That does weigh a little bit of a factor for me because I saw a guy Peyton Manning, who's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, struggle in cold weather games. I'm not saying he's going to be Peyton Manning, but you're going to be paying him like he is a Peyton Manning going forward, and that's going to hinder what else you're going to do with the rest of the roster. So I just threw it out there. I think it's a fair question. I know you wanted to get...
Are people losing their minds over it?
Well, people just like to lose their minds about anything
But
right now.
let's do the exercise. Jacksonville has a number 1 pick right now. Jacksonville's not taking a quarterback. They just paid Trevor Lawrence.
They're not yeah.
We could argue about whether Trevor's good or not, and I don't think he's very good.
You think Trent Baalke's going to survive as third coach?
Who knows? This guy's crazy.
This guy's a cockroach.
The New York Giants, are they drafting a quarterback or trading one of their picks, a future pick for a quarterback?
It's going to be them and the Raiders taking either Shador Sanders or Cam Ward.
Okay.
I'm locked in on that.
Raiders are 3. Okay,
Yes.
so that's the other team.
Yeah.
New England, not taking a quarterback.
Drake May looks good.
Carolina, with the recent Bryce development, maybe they shouldn't take a quarterback. I like Bryce still.
I like Bryce Young as the backup for the 49ers going forward.
No, I would love to get him.
Yeah.
Tennessee, are they trading their first-round pick right now, the 6th pick, for Brock Purdy?
I don't think so. You know, it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a plethora of teams. If the Jags end up having that number 1 overall pick, a lot of teams are going to try to trade off that for Shador, Cam Ward, whoever they value more. It's going to be for one of those guys, and there's going to start being a bidding war. But to that point, maybe a team on the outskirts that feels like they can't get up to that point says, you know what? Maybe it's easier for us to trade this pick and get Brock Purdy, who's already a proven commodity. Maybe that happens.
Maybe. The Jets.
No, they're a dumpster fire. They're not a quarterback away. They're going to be going, they're going to total rebuild.
Cleveland, they just did a trade for a quarterback and gave up a ton of picks. I don't see them maybe I'm wrong, but him playing in that weather,
that Deshaun Watson contract
is going to scare them forever.
Oh my God.
New Orleans. Now, New Orleans at 9.
That's interesting.
It is.
I'll think about that
Cincinnati, no.
But the New Orleans, real quick, they're another team that maybe have stinks of a rebuild too.
I agree. Cincinnati, no. They're at 10. Dallas, 11, no, because they both have quarterbacks. Chicago just drafted their quarterback. Indy at 13.
Maybe.
Like, do the math here. There aren't a lot of people bidding for Brock's services.
You know, Indy's interesting. It's interesting. The Midwest guy. He went to Iowa.
I like Indy for him.
I could see Brock Purdy being a huge deal in Indianapolis. Him and the Caitlin Clark commercials.
That's not bad.
Like that? Come on.
Miami, Tampa, they have quarterbacks. The Rams currently have a quarterback. Niners at 17. Arizona's got their quarterback. Atlanta's got 2 quarterbacks. Seattle, they'll never trade with them, but
no.
I don't know what they're going to do. Washington has their quarterback. Houston has their quarterback. Denver has their quarterback. Chargers have their quarterback. Baltimore has theirs. Pittsburgh's is up in the air. That's why I brought them up. Green Bay has their quarterback. Minnesota's got multiple quarterbacks. Philly and Buffalo. And then Kansas City and Detroit. Again, we're talking about 4 teams.
It's
5 teams, maybe.